Okay, when it comes to documentation, it's a very powerful tool that's
Very crucial
used
and important.
for evidence. What he said for evidence. It's all of the above. So it pretty much gives you like, it's not just like, if you think about documentation itself regarding of the forensic stuff, it's like paperwork, right? Just a piece of paper with a bunch of stuff on it.
But the person who's
Bro,
doing
it's
it
just,
needs to be descriptive.
bro, okay, instead of that, when it comes to forensics, like in a forensic world, documentation is used as so much other things, Documentation is basically like say it's like pictures or like, stuff like that to like kind of like give an idea of how the scene is before it gets dismantled,
Of course.
and stuff like that is like used with like pictures, like different documentations from pictures. Pictures are used as documentation. There's different ways to get other documentations using pictures. Like you take close-up pictures, you take far-away pictures, you take sideways pictures, you take this angle pictures, and those are all used as documentations. So if I'm the jury and I see all these pictures, I can kind of like sum it up together in my head to like figure out, this is how the crime was, and this is like what it looks like from here, this is what it looks like from here, this is what certain other evidence stuff looks like, like a gun or like other things that could be used as evidence. You take pictures of that like close up, and then you take a picture of everything like the whole room in general, so like a lot of different ways to take pictures of things and like different angles. Those all get used as a solid documentation tool for evidence. And another thing is like I was talking about in the first video about like measurements and sketches. Like sketches are also crucial when it comes to documentation, because I was talking about how at NCTA, like when you like secure the scene and like pretty much investigate everything, you take all the measurements and like put it all on a piece of paper on how the scene was discovered. Like you draw everything out. That's like crucial for like a documentation of the scene itself, and that's like all the evidence is included in that sketch, so that's all can be like used towards being a tool for evidence.
And also regarding that, building the case, like you said, being very descriptive, and when it comes to what was used at the crime scene, there's various other methods like videos, like
Text messages.
yeah, using a body cam and
Yeah.
being very descriptive, because officers nowadays they have body cams. Officers gonna ask questions,
Yeah.
anything so that he can, when he's writing a report, look back, and it makes their job easier because of the body cam is recording, and he can look back and just makes it more credible for building a case. And like he said, mentioned pictures. All this makes it a lot more easier for the jury to understand what happened, and it makes it like if they're at the crime scene because of all the angles of the pictures and the various elements. And not only that, being descriptive when it comes to evidence is very important, because if a gun or a knife, you need to know how big it was. The knife, was it like a Swiss blade, or there's various
Pocket knife.
Yeah, pocket knife, or just in general. You can't just say, "Oh, the killer used a knife." You have to be. Did he use a machete? Did he use a butcher knife? Just descriptive, and just being very clear about the scene and what was used and how various different methods of that.
Yeah, so documentation can like regard anything pretty much, like even notes. Because remember in a terrorist case, they had that one
Yeah.
note from the guy that killed himself.
Yeah.
He had a note full of stuff. That was like a documentation of. It was a piece of documentation that was used as evidence, right?
And because of that, it allows them to build a more case, potential
Suspects and conclusions too.
All that is very crucial to get the detectives, investigators somewhere, rather than looking at all possible leads to where and who is involved.
Even social media is a big way of documentation too. like posts,
Mhm.
stories, videos, reels, TikToks. Those are all ways of documentation. Like,
Mhm.
like even like when it comes to like threatening somebody, like they can use text messages, like that documentation, as as evidence to convince a jury that this person had the intent to kill this person because he literally texted someone else that they were going to do it, or they texted the person themselves, the victim, that they were going to do it.
Yeah, like you said about social media, a lot of people nowadays will admit or blatantly show that what they're doing is on camera. They're basically showing them in the act of what they're doing, and it's a social media is another tool for law enforcement to use it against the suspect. And another thing regarding evidence that we talked about class was that um, if evidence if it's physical, like let's say semen or is on a carpet, and the officer needs to cut off that portion of the carpet to preserve and transfer it to the evidence lab. Anything that the officer needs to do to transport or collect the evidence, by all means, like cutting off a piece of the wall because it has blood evidence, or even like some sort of evidence that needs to be transported, then
Yeah, you can do that, or take pictures of
Mhm.
a blood scatter
Yeah,
from a
by all
wall.
means.
So pretty much, like when it comes to like documentation, like in general, it pretty much is like a a, a thing, like a picture, text message, like stuff that kind of already is like gives facts. It's like it already shows facts, because the text messages show facts that this guy had an intent to kill this guy, because clearly that's what the text messages show. And even notes, even from officers, from notes while you're investigating a crime scene, you take notes. You just try to make it like the motive behind documentation is to like really make you understand what happened, and and why it happened too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Another thing, like I said, regarding documentation, um, during that time, I guess a lot of techniques are, like you mentioned, writing, pictures, but also chain of custody. We have gone to lengths, but that's very crucial when it comes to documentation. If something's missing, if the officer properly didn't write something down, then the
Or
whole
didn't
thing
even
is
write it
useless.
at all. Like there was no documentation of him doing something, that could really mess it up. So, you gotta like document everything that you're doing. Even when it comes to police reports, I feel like police reports is also like in general, police reports in general, like when you're like called to a situation and then you make your report afterwards at the office or wherever,
Mhm.
um, all that can be used as evidence too, because that's what the officer has seen, and what he sees or she sees, could be crucial to the case itself. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if I walk in a building where, like, say if I walk into the school, right, there's a school shooting and a bunch of kids are lying dead on the floor, right, and then I just see that, like an AK, like in the corner, you know what I mean? So I have to document everything that I'm seeing, like, and like body cameras help to do that because they just look back at their body cam and whatever the body cam even saw. But the thing with the body cam, it's a good way of documentation.
But it's also just like,
It's just the body cam's
yeah, it's
view.
just one
Like it's
way.
not just it's not your eyes, because you can physically, like, you can actually from your own perspective see a lot of more stuff than just a body cam itself. Because a body cam is just seeing the stuff where your chest is directing to, so it can only see this straight. Or if I'm going like this, it'll just see like this, or maybe like partly of this, but I can still see stuff over there while my body's like going this way. I can still see Salvador from my
Mhm.
eyes, but the body cam can't see him.
Mhm.
So I gotta like document everything that I'm seeing. So that's how like how important documentation is, because especially when it comes to officers themselves, like if they document everything, they could get to a conclusion to the case even faster. So that's how important documentation is, and it's such an important tool, and there's like so many techniques to go about it, right? There's photos, there's social media, there's all kinds of shit. But as I was talking about my example about the whole like, oh, that's my mom. Oh, anyways, as I was talking about the example, like say, like I'm walking through and I see a bunch of kids lying floor being dead. I gotta like talk about that. I gotta document it all. I gotta write notes on my notepad, and even a notepad that can be used as evidence too in the court. Like saying like actual like in the presence of everything that was like in the presence of me discovering it, that's actually what I saw. I'm not obviously if I'm not just gonna write bullshit on it. I'm gonna write what I saw in my notes. I could mess up later on my police report, but everything on the note seems pretty valid because that's what I saw and that's what I remember from the actual time that I was there as it was first discovered, if that makes sense. Okay, so I write everything and then I write notes on I see this and this and this, and then the murder weapon, right? Or believed to be the murder weapon. There's just an AK just sitting there. It's not proven that it was the murder weapon. That's proven like when they take the bullet and all that stuff and kind of link it to the murder weapon. But anyways, I have to talk about the murder weapon itself. Like what type of gun it is. Like what do I think it is? Oh, it could be AK, it could be something else. SMG, whatever. And then like try and then also take pictures, right? Like of everything, and like just put it all on documentation. In my police report, I gotta make, I just everything that I saw and did, and who I talked to, who talked to me, who I looked at, all that type of stuff. What I did from the exact time to end time, and like when I got in my car, that all has to be documented because when the jury looks at the police report from the officer that observed the crime scene first, he or she is gonna be able to determine what actually went on, and then the evidence that's given to support all that, it's gonna like make everything much smoother, and the jury will be convinced if the suspect was right or wrong or stuff like that.
Not only that, when it comes to evidence documentation, witness statements are a huge thing. Like we learned in class, if there was a girl who recently came out of something traumatic, she saw something that disturbed her, and she's just hurt right now. Don't interrupt her. If she's talking to a paramedic, describing like what she saw, don't try to just let her.
Yeah, I remember McKenna was
Yeah.
talking about that. He was talking about when someone like steals or something, like you just like what they did was wrong, right? Like
Yeah.
you already know that they're in shit, but like you just have to let them. You gotta make them be calm.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking to someone, like when you're investigating someone and you're documenting them, you just gotta let them talk, because then they're just gonna not feel pressured. Because when they feel pressured and anxious and nervous, they just start saying lies because they obviously know if they're just gonna get in trouble, right? But if they're calm, they can just let it out, and you're just there documenting like, oh yeah, this and this and this, and then that's just gonna prove the case on what they said.
Another thing is like when it comes to witness statements and documentation, like little kids, you shouldn't you shouldn't be like telling the mom, did you see this? Did that happen? Did he do this to you? Because then that thing is useful because they're saying that you're not coercing, but like you're telling him what he saw and just basically having him like read off the script. And when it comes to like people in general, you should have them basically describe what they saw, give them time, let them properly say what they saw, what happened to them, who the suspect was, give them time, and just in general when it comes to getting statements from witnesses, just it's also like out in the open or in general public. If the crime scene is outside, if this happened in the mall, separate witnesses. Don't have everybody together because this can mix up the witness statements and make them useless because of how everybody's statements are mixed up and witnesses talked together. It mixed it all up.
So if we look at Tara's case, what type of documentation you think was crucial to kind of like figure out what happened?
Crucial? Well, there was a lot of like the police officers, once Peyton started coming in and they talked about, like they looked at a lot of suspects, like that one Facebook dude.
Yeah,
And
that was some documentation. I
Yeah.
even remember the emails.
yeah,
Cause she was like just going out on like love story nonsense right up through the emails. A lot of good emails are documentation are good documentation too. And I know this is off topic, but like when it comes to the Epstein files, all the emails, that's all
documentation.
used as documentation, bro. As those are all tool, like that documentation is a tool of evidence, right? All those emails can be used as evidence to like, you know, prove what this guy was doing and who was involved, because there were so many people involved.
Even because like it just came out, the plane logs, you know, who went to the island, who was on board that plane, and
Yeah.
anyone who just basically took a plane ticket to go
Yeah.
there.
Like even stuff that you apply for, like if you sign up for something, it's all documented in the system, you know, and then the feds can go pull that, use that documentation as a tool for evidence, you know. So it just go like so many things that you wouldn't realize is tool like documentation. It's all documented. Everything you do documented. Even when CTC footage, it's documented, you know, footage, like recorded footage that could be used as a document to prove whether you did a crime or not, you know? Because like say if I go rob a gas station or something and it's all on footage, you know, they're gonna use that footage file as documentation to prove to the jury that, you know, I actually did it, because the evidence that shows it just gives, you know, it just gives like a proof beyond reasonable doubt, right?
Yeah.
Proof beyond reasonable doubt that I committed the crime.
Yeah, and also just a whole recap on this. Like we said, there's various different means of getting documentation, whether it's video
Or even
drawing,
like
picture,
phone calls, dude.
Yeah, phone calls.
And even when it came to terrorist thing, I feel like cause like it's not like a piece of evidence, but I remember when she was trying to file that restraining order against Anthony.
Yeah.
And like and that whole, because I think the narrator like he knew the whole report, like what was going on about it, and like that's how he was able to gain, that's how he was able to know that the friend, the cop that was taking the report was friends with Marcus, you know. So all that stuff was kind of like documented in a way.
We also saw that the phone calls that she had previously called an officer before she went missing. So all that sort of information kind of gives investigators good leads or potential leads to, oh, you know, this guy was her last contact, and he's a potential suspect.
I feel like a lot of things when it comes to documentation, like especially like in today's world, like digital just has it up there, dude. Like especially if you're working a case like with like I don't know, like child molesting or like some like type of child abuse or like child rape or whatever.
Their digital footprint.
Yeah,
you know?
like even if you like, you could like look at their like
Google searches.
Their search history, or say if this guy was like looking up at their parents. What if he knew about their parents, and like in a search history it's all their parents, all the victims' parents, trying to like go on their profile because they're probably, you know, poster kids or whatever, and trying to like understand how their life is and how it works, and then when you come up with a plan to figure out, you know, okay, this is a good time, or this is how I'm gonna, you know, get to this child, you know. Like it's just crazy stuff that can happen, you know, and like all that stuff that you're doing is gonna bite you in the ass at the end because it's all documented.
Yeah, those are all effective.
You know what I mean? Like if they look up at his like search history, they can like kind of like figure it out. You know, this guy was trying to investigate the child's family, and like, you know, he had intent to do it, right? Because he obviously looked it up. He wanted to plan something, and whatever he planned is, you know, whatever crime he committed to the victim's family.
If he was trying to meet up, you know, the messages.
Those are all
time,
documentation.
The day, clearly, like we said, digital messages are a big thing when it comes to documentation, because in the era of technology, as we become more like advanced and a lot of us use technology, a lot of people basically incriminate themselves because of what they say and who, and it makes it a lot more easier for investigators and prosecutors to prosecute these people.
Do you even you remember what that lab we just did with the whole VR thing? And then remember
Yeah.
I talked about it, like how they use it in court as evidence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like a full-on valid documentation, but I remember they could make scenarios on
Yeah.
how the scene actually happened. You
And
know?
this gives us the jury like a view of what went on and
Yeah.
just a more better understanding. Like
Yeah.
if they're at the crime scene,
Yeah.
and that's a good technique.
Yeah,
for-
that's like a good technique of a certain type of documentation. It's not like the actual thing, but it's it's like it's literally just documenting like on the VR simulator of what happened,
Mhm.
and it just makes the video out of it, and you can just show it to the jury to prove like what happened. It's kind of like that, if that makes sense to you,
Mhm.
but
Not only show, but it just basically teaches them, shows them, but
yeah,
helps them understand what happened and the setting
yeah.
and the crime scene, of course.
Yeah. So pretty much in general, documentation is a big tool, and documentation comes from like many different things, as we just explained.
Mhm.
Photos, text messages, videos. What
Uh,
else?
Emails, of course.
Dude, even music, bro.
yeah.
Like, you remember there's this rapper named TK. Remember TK?
Yeah, they can like write their
Yeah.
crimes,
So
you know?
he literally rapped about his crime.
King Von.
Yeah, King Von. Freaking who else? Who else?
Don't know anyone else, but
YNW Melly, bro. He rapped about it.
yeah.
So like, there's these rappers that rap about killing people and doing their crimes. There's this guy named TK. He rapped about killing someone, and they used his lyrics as documentation, because it's literally documentation, right? Like it's
Use the instant.
yeah, it's like it's lyrics, right? So they use that as evidence to prove that he's actually admitting to do it through his music. So there's many ways that documentation can be used
as
upon.
Use
Like
as evidence, of course.
yeah, like there's just so many ways. Like music, like it's just crazy. But like music is one of the ways. I feel like there's just so many other ways too, like that we probably would have been realized that were ways in the first place. But yeah, documentation rocks.
Of course.
Oh God.
The preservation.
Yeah.